Good morning, everyone. Millennial Economics here. I'm going to talk to you about how to make more money in your career today. I have been kind of thinking about this recently, talking to a buddy about this recently, and I wanted to share some thoughts. So I'm going to start just with my story, just a brief overview for those of you that don't know. When I graduated high school, didn't really know what I wanted to do in terms of career. I had lots of ideas. I wanted to go to the military. I wanted to go to art school. I know things at both ends of the spectrum. I wanted to possibly start a business. I wanted to do music. I was a singer-songwriter, still play around with the guitar, but not as much as I used to. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, so essentially I decided to take a year off of school. Did music for a while, kind of played around town, did some small gigs, realized that wasn't the life for me. So I sold all my things. Well, I was working at the pharmacy at the time. All throughout high school, I worked at a pharmacy. And I quit that job, sold all my things, did a 3-week tour on the western half of the country, visited national parks, slept in, rest areas and camped and that sort of thing. Got that travel adventure bug out of my system, I guess you could say. When I got back, didn't really have a job, so I ended up waiting tables at California Pizza Kitchen. And while waiting tables, a buddy of mine that was working at a more of a corporate job said they were hiring for customer service, kind of customer support position. So I got my first real job, I guess you could say, big boy job, and I was making, I think it was $14.50 an hour. To me, that was a ton of money back then. And while I was working that job, they had an open call into sales. So I ended up applying, got the job, and I think I was 19 or 20 at the time. I believe I was 19, and got into sales in a corporate environment. And that was really kind of the start of what I'm doing now, essentially, where it's led me. Had a lot of different sales jobs since then. I've done anything from leasing apartments, selling freight, selling marketing services, and eventually I've landed myself from being a manager, and then all the way up to a sales director. And so I've had a lot of experience in my young years. I'm 30 years old, about progressing my career and making more money. And so I want to share just a few of those thoughts with you. So number one, I think that the first way that you can make money, progress your career, advance your pay, really, is being willing to seek out new opportunities. Especially early on in your career. So I know that job hopping kind of gets a bad rap, and I don't ever advocate somebody to be a job hopper. And what would I say is a job hopper? I think somebody that can't hold anything for longer than a year, 2 years, early on in their career. When you're working somewhere and 4 months in you get bored and you move jobs, and then you're working somewhere again for 4 months and you get bored and you move jobs. When I interview people now, if there are months on next to the position that you held and not years, that's usually a red flag. Now, I typically ask people, what made you change from this job? And, if there's a reasonable explanation, then I certainly understand. But being willing to move careers, though, in a strategic way will help you get more money, will help you make more money. There's a fine line between job hopping and moving careers for opportunity. And that's one thing that I've done, is I knew I wanted to get into management at some point as I got a couple years of sales under my belt. The companies that I were at previously wouldn't allow me, or didn't give me the opportunity and the timing that I wanted to achieve that goal. So I found a company that did, and I've been there for several years. So find that line of changing positions with companies, and that could be internal positions, and it could be with a completely different company. But finding that line of moving around early on in your career to kind of will accelerate your income, I would say. So that's the first thing. The second thing is educating yourself and taking ownership of your career. So there are a lot of people, and I think especially younger folks, that just treat a job as a job. And there's a place for that. And if that's what you want to do, that's totally fine. But if you're going somewhere and you're just clocking in, you're clocking out, and you're not giving much thought into yourself personally, I think you're doing yourself a disservice. I think those that look at themselves as their brand, and build their brand throughout the years, find a little bit more success and advance their earning potential more quickly, I guess you could say. How do you do this? Well, I think you educate yourself on things that interest you. For me, that was initially marketing, transition into just kind of self-development, right? So leadership, discipline, learning how business works. And I think reading books, listening to podcasts, watching YouTube videos helped me communicate in a way that provided value for a company. And really, at the end of the day, the more valuable you are to a company, the more that company typically will pay you, or a company would pay you, right? If you only can provide $100,000 worth of value to a company, well, at the end of the day, that company is wanting to pay you less than $100,000 because they're in it to make money, right? That makes total sense. Now, if you increase your knowledge base, whether it be self-discipline or productivity or leadership, and you can increase your impact to a company to be $500,000 a year or $1 million a year or $5 million a year, well, those companies are going to be willing to pay you more to be at their company. So I'll give you an example. If you're a salesperson and you really learn about self-improvement and productivity, and you start producing $2 million for a company, comparatively to before you started working on yourself, maybe you were only able to produce $500,000 to a company. Well, that's going to increase your earning potential. If you are able to get, so say you're able to, in an 8-hour span of a day, you got a certain amount of work done, and then you really hone in on productivity, and you are able to get 150% of that work done in a day that you used to be able to, that company probably is going to pay you more. And really where it gets fun is when you're able to help other people be productive, or you're able to help other people be more profitable for a company. That company is going to pay you more, or a company will pay you more for those skills. Again, it might not be with the company you're at. You might have to go find that. But learning how to communicate that to a company too in a job interview is vital. And I guess the last thing is yeah, I guess I don't want to expand too much on that in this video. So taking ownership of your brand, working on yourself, working on your development, whatever that may be. It could be productivity, it could be profitability, it could be self-discipline, it could be how you are able to interact with others, or maybe you're public speaking. Maybe you become a great public speaker, or maybe you become the best welder. You really work on welding in the off time because you enjoy it. Those things will lend itself to increasing your pay. And then being able to strategically move companies. Again, not becoming a job hopper, but becoming someone that is willing to take a risk sometimes and go out and find opportunity will be valuable. So from my perspective, I've seen it not only in my own life, but in people that I've interviewed or people that I've worked with. I hope that you find this information valuable, and we will talk very soon.